Bulletproof Radio, a state of high performance.
Hey everyone, it's Dave Asprey with Bulletproof Radio. Today's cool fact of the day is that spider dragline silk is really, really strong and flexible, but it's just about impossible to mass produce with spiders, mostly because they want to eat flies. You eat a lot of flies, it's just kind of messy. So researchers solved the problem by inserting the silk gene from spiders into goats. And those special dairy goats make milk that has long strands of spider silk, which they then harvest from the milk, and they can get huge amounts of spider silk that way. The goats have 8 legs, which means they're more delicious as well. At least that's what I hear. Okay, the 8 legs isn't true, but the rest of it, yeah, that's a cool fact of the day. Today's guest is Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who's founder of the science of biogeometry. And one of the Bulletproof followers on Facebook reached out and said, hey, Dave, you need to check this guy out. And I'm not sure that I understand everything about biogeometry, although I read a book on it. So I wanted to go straight to the inventor himself and learn something about how geometry can affect the energy in the air around us, specifically electromagnetic frequencies, as well as other things. We all know that things like a well-designed room can just kind of feel different when you walk in there. And maybe there's a little bit more science to it than that. And we've probably all heard about Feng shui and things like that. So this is going a little bit more technical because Dr. Karim is a graduate of the Federal Institute of Technology in Switzerland. And he's basically working with industrial design and architecture to make spaces that affect how we feel and perform and even how things grow. And he's been Man of the Year in the Swiss magazine Anzeiger, which I probably pronounced really, really poorly. And he actually is based in Egypt. So he's coming on Bulletproof Radio live from Cairo. Dr. Karim, thank you for coming on Bulletproof Radio today.
Well, thank you, Dave, for having me.
So let's talk about biogeometry. Did I define it relatively well? What is biogeometry and what do you do with it? Basically, tell me the story.
Well, first thing, there are many forms of free energy that we have around us. Now, geometrical shapes are one of the things that can actually produce free energy. And not free energy like the way we're used to understand, like using the energy from the wind to produce electricity or things like that. No, free energy here is an actual multidimensional form of energy. That means it has all the attributes of life. It's a living energy that you can harness and you can produce through geometrical shapes. So we can make actually geometrical shapes that emit a free energy. So we can use this energy to raise the immunity of living systems. We can use it to harmonize an area. When I mean harmonize, that means harmonizing the living systems within that area. So it's a design language, actually, what we have in biogeometry, based on a physics of quality. And it produces a certain energy quality. Let's say we use qualities as mainstream science uses quantities, you see. So by meaning qualities here, science defines energy as the ability to produce an effect. And an effect needs somebody to be affected. So we built a physics of quality where the human energy system is the measuring device of everything, you see. So we measure everything on the balance of the human energy system. So that's the basic paradigm of biogeometry.
So if I sort of translate and simplify that a little bit, you're looking at a quantitative measure of what's happening in the human body and seeing what the environment around you does to that?
Well, we look at the human body on the energetic level. On the energetic level, meaning on the vitality, emotional and mental and higher levels, as an open energy system.
How do how do you measure that? Like how do you know if someone's vital or not?
Well, first of all, vitality is not in the body. Vitality is how the body exchanges energy with its environment. For example, the air exists around you. You take it inside you. It's in a collective state. You take it becomes an individual state, and then it goes out again in the surrounding. So if you are an open energy system, the quality of air outside affects the quality of air in you, and then you affect it. So on all levels, vitality, emotional and mental, you're an open energy system. And BioGeometry comes in and harmonizes the energy exchange between the human system and the environment. It puts a certain harmony into the system. That means it puts a certain energy quality that restores balance to all the energetic interactions in the body. And this is very simple. This energy quality is the same energy quality that you find in sacred power spots. You know, I'm an architect, and in architecture, we studied the history of temples and monuments and all that. One day I asked myself, is it the building or is it the area? It is the special energy of the area or the building. And so we developed the physics of quality to study the qualities of those areas. We found out that sacred power spots all over the world had a very special harmonizing energy. We devised a geometrical language to reproduce that energy and amplify it 1,000 times. Once we amplified it 1,000 times, we had an energy quality that could balance anything. And that is the cornerstone of BioGeometry. We, for example, in Canada, we raise chicken without antibiotics, without chemicals, without everything. We can raise, we raise cows by reducing the leukocytes in their milk and things like that. I mean, there's no limit to what we can do. We've done whole towns in Switzerland where we protected the residents from electromagnetic radiation in the area, and 60% of health symptoms disappeared. And we restored even the quality of the environment. Let's say migrating birds came back, the animals, wild animals came back to the forests, people became healthier, psychology of the people became friendlier, violence was reduced, and it really changed the whole community.
So I've had the opportunity to go to several sacred places. Sedona is considered a power spot. Mount Kailash in Western Tibet. Some other places like that, and the places do feel different. It's a very subjective thing, though. Like it feels different to me in one way, and someone else might go there and it feels very different. And maybe we're all using different words to describe the same general feeling. Maybe we experience it differently. But you've gone and you've studied these to make that reproducible. Do you have a mechanism in your studies to understand what the effect a space has on a specific person, or are you sort of going in and saying what's the effect on me, and then you're sort of doing it with your own nervous system? Like, how does this work? I'm really interested.
You see, when I say the human being is the device on which we do measurements, so first of all, if let's say come in and do some work on your space, I'll get biofeedback devices, get a complete analysis. I get an independent institute or something. They give me a complete assessment of your energy system, of your organ functions and everything. And then sometimes I could just place one item, because we have many ways of putting harmony in the space. I could place one item there and then ask them to come and do the assessment again on your body. And I can tell you things, that we've seen from those assessments. We've been in a recent doctor's degree thesis at university. We've been able to use a decorative pattern to raise the serotonin level in the brain better than the best drug found on the market. We got higher results than those just by putting a decorative pattern on the wall, you see. So we can do things like that. We can, people who are, for example, epileptics, you could, the medallion you have in front of you, if you find an epileptic, let them make an EEG, put it in his hand, and the EEG will change instantaneously. You'll find a different pattern on the EEG. Take it off again, and it's like before.
Have you done like a double-blind study on that, where you put a medallion with the alphabet on it, and it doesn't make the change? Like, have you sorted out placebo on these things?
No, I'm a university professor, so all the work I do is, most of my research is part of postgraduate research, like master's and doctor's degrees. So we always give independent labs at the university. I mean, a placebo effect. I'll tell you a nice story about the placebo effect. When I did the area of Hamburg and the migrating birds came back, there was such big change in the health of people, animals, and things like that. They called that the miracle of Hamburg. And there was a book actually that came out called The Miracle of Hamburg. So some psychologists came and said that's a sort of a mass hypnosis effect or a placebo effect on a large scale, They thought, okay, this guy, he has his doctor's degree from Switzerland, from our university, but the fact that he comes from Egypt, it could be one of those pharaonic master magicians, coming and just producing his miracles in Switzerland, hiding behind the science. So one of the professors was saying this could be the man himself doing all that and not really his science. So a simple lady stood up and told him, sir, do you think that the cows in Hamburg speak Arabic?
That's a fair point. You could be the cow whisperer and no one knows it, right? But
because if animals, birds, and plants and all that are responding, there's no placebo effect with animals and birds and things like that.
There is a valid question, though, and this is something that drives me nuts in Western medicine, is in any sort of test you have, something you're testing, a mechanism, right, a modality of healing. You have a patient with a documented condition, and then this other variable is the healer, the physician, the person. So we like to pretend like the healer is not a part of the system, but the person is. So when you're looking at whether, say, acupuncture works, the training and skill of the acupuncturist is a really important variable in the outcome there. And there are lots of studies that show something like acupuncture can work, even though 20 years ago, everyone who would use that would clearly be a witch doctor, and they would, it was all placebo and it didn't work. But now, it actually does work, and we can actually see the meridians now that we have good detectors. So I'm a huge fan of looking at systems, looking at effects, even if we have no idea why the effects are. If you at least look for effects that shouldn't be, see if they're happening, and then backfill. Like, that's where science comes from. But there's a very big push in some circles in the West to say that didn't happen because it can't. Whereas the scientific approach would be to say, what the heck? I don't believe that should have been able to happen. Let's verify that it happened. And if it did, then we need to question our assumptions, and then we actually learn something. So your work is interesting because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, what's the effect on biological systems like agricultural production or on human well-being, however it is you're measuring that with biosensors, and I'd love to get into that some more if we have time, like specifically what you're looking at. But, okay, so you're saying we can do something, even if the something makes no sense, if it reliably produces results, then we need to figure out how and why it might make sense. And if I've interpreted your book right, and I did have a hard time getting all of it, to be honest, if I interpret that right, is this a summary of kind of how you arrived at this, looking at okay, what are the things I can do in different environments that reliably reproduce this feeling and then this vitality in animals and people? Am I on the right direction?
You're in the right direction. Many people who ask me, for example, in Switzerland, when the government invited me over to come and do their areas where the people were revolting and they were going to dynamite the cell towers and things like that. So the government asked me to go and do the work there. But there was one thing, the cause and effect, the people are saying, if you do not remove the cause of the harm, you cannot reduce the harm. So you have to remove it. So if you bring somebody from Egypt and tell us that he is going to change the effect without removing the cause, that is not logic, you know. So, but the government told them, well, that's precisely why we got this person, because he can do that. And then they asked me, please explain your science, explain the mechanism and all that. My answer was, can you solve the problem with mainstream science? If you can, then solve it. I don't have time to lose. Go and solve it. But obviously you can't, otherwise you wouldn't have invited me. Now, just ask me one thing. Ask me to solve your problem. And if I solve your problem successfully, then ask me about biogeometry. If I can't solve it, there's no need to ask in the first place, you see. So the whole thing is, ask me, can you do it? I'm a person who provides solutions, you see. If you are not feeling okay, you have a problem, Dave, and you tell me, Ibrahim, I have this problem. You don't care about my explanations, you don't care about anything. All you care about is seeing your problem go away. If your problem goes away, then you want to ask me. Then biogeometry is interesting. If it doesn't go away, no need to ask me at all. So this is how I like to work. I like to show people. In Canada, when I came and said, okay, I can produce chicken without antibiotics, I can even remove the anticoccidial vaccination they take in the beginning, and no hormones, nothing at all. You're going to take away all chemicals from that. And then they said, the first thing they said, that is impossible. So I said, well, give me a trial period and I'll show you how much time do you want. They say, okay, can you do it for 3 months? I said, I can. I did it for 3 months. They said, oh, that's fantastic. Can you extend for another 3 months? I extended for another 3 months until I kept going for a year and a year and a half. And people said, things are getting better all the time. So at the end, they chose biogeometry over all other systems in the world in order for their production after that. And then we signed the commercial contract, you see.
What country was this? Or where was this?
It's in Canada, in Quebec.
In Quebec, okay.
Because
cool.
I live in Montreal, you know.
Okay.
So my work was in Alma, 6 hours north of Montreal. That's where I was caught in the snowstorm last time.
Last time we tried to talk, the snowstorm blocked us. That's right.
Yeah, at I was at the chicken farms at that time.
So how many chicken are at the chicken farm that's using biogeometry? Is this 10,000 or 100,000 kind of bird operation?
Well, each farm has about, I think, I'm not sure, but each farm has about 50 or 60,000.
Okay, so reasonable size.
Yeah, and we're doing now about 9 farms. So it's quite a big size, yeah.
Okay, so they're seeing a difference. And one thing that I've learned a lot about, I just had Moldy, my documentary just came out, and a lot of my research that went into making bulletproof coffee without mold toxins in it came from agricultural research about mold in food, because animal farmers know when their animals are dying because they can't make money. They look at how much does a solution cost and does it work? Yeah. Because either the animals can reproduce or they put on weight or they don't. And it's very quantitative. So they pay attention to things that we really don't measure well in humans because, well, we're all random and we eat whatever we want. But when you're a chicken, you pretty much eat what they put in front of you. So you've identified a way to reduce some risks, and the farmers are seeing an economic impact, or they would not likely be doing this. But okay, what did you do to these chickens, or what did you do to their environment specifically? Like, did you put pyramids in there? Did you hang moons from the ceiling? Like just kind of paint a picture for me of the changes you made.
We have little strips that we put on the electrical cables. Okay. So that we put some harmonizing energy on the electrical fields. And then the electrical field becomes it gets a healing effect on the animals and not the opposite. And then we come on the water pipes, and we have other strips that we put on the water pipes. So because the water pipes, the movement of water in the metal pipe produces electromagnetic field. So we put something there too, and we charge the water, so the water becomes like the healing waters of sacred power spots. It gets that same quality, and the chicken are given that water. Then we go into the farm itself, and we place geometrical shapes there, a few geometrical shapes around that are emitting energy at the chicken. And that's all. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Now, these are metal, not plexiglass, right? Does it matter what the material is for the shapes that you're using?
What I used in the beginning, in the first projects I did in Switzerland, I used wooden shapes. But then in winter, the wood would change shape, So we used plexiglass after that. So plexiglass is good because metal could actually magnetize, from a lot of electromagnetic radiation. And some people, we work a lot on aircrafts. Because aircrafts, if you sit in an airplane, there's a huge amount of electromagnetic radiation inside the aircraft. And when we put our strips and our things in the cables under the cladding, of the wall and all that, they don't want any metal objects. That's one of the things, because they're not sure what metal objects could interfere with the instruments, if they're put on the cables. So they ask us always to put non-metallic objects to use. So we use plexiglass usually, or sometimes wood.
And the important thing, the strips that you're using in these farms, it's not that these these don't have chips on them. They're not attenuating the signal using a magnetic field. These have like drawings on them, basically. If I'm
I'll tell you, we use different things. One of the things we use in those strips is the quality of numbers. If you have a water current and you put one stone in there, you're going to have a certain shape of turbulence. If you have two, you get a completely different shape. You put three, you put different shapes. So we look at numbers as quality generating methods. So every number actually interacts with the surrounding energy and produces certain energy quality. So those little strips that we have, they have certain angles at the tips, and in the middle they have just like little teeth like that in the number we need. So you might find that to solve a certain problem, you need a certain number. So we have a strip with that number.
Like what tells you the number?
We teach all those things. I'll tell you lots of interesting about numbers. In my book that you have, you have in the appendix an overview of the BioGeometry design language.
Yeah.
Now, in this design language, you will find that we use so many different things. Numbers are one of them now. If you study that, we give lots of courses all over the United States and Canada and all over the world. So once you study that, if you, let's say, go in a theater and you have the seats there, a row, let's say, has so many seats. So the row, because of the number of seats, has a certain energy quality. Now your seat has a number within that number, so each seat will have a different energy quality than the other seat. And you can actually find the seat that will correct the energy of a certain organ in your body and just sit on it, and it will have a healing effect on your body, although it's just a normal theater seat, And that's by really understanding the quality or how numbers can affect you.
And you would measure that effect on the organ system using some sort of biofeedback gear? I meditate. I have lots of bodily awareness. I've been trained in Chinese energetic medicine, and I've been to shamanic training weekends and things like that. So I'm open to this stuff. But I can tell you, I've never felt a difference from choosing one seat versus another in a theater. And I'm probably at the end of the spectrum of aware people. Tell me a little bit more about how we measure this. I'm having a hard time believing that. Not that I believe that you're trying to tell me something's not true. I don't get it.
Measurement is easy. First, you choose your way of assessing the body functions. You want to assess the energetic functions of the body. Now, one thing we use a lot is, since you're speaking about Chinese medicine, we use the Chinese pulse system, the 12 pulse system. Now, usually in many of my courses, I have some Chinese doctors, friends of mine, who are there, and I put them on the stage beside me, and every time I want to show something, let's say an effect of numbers, I would ask the Chinese doctor to diagnose a person. and the person would come up and then he would tell me, let's say, I see a problem in the liver there. So I say, okay. And now the person opens his hand and I can get some matches, let's say. I put 1 match, 2 matches, 3 matches, and so on. Till I have a certain number in the hand, and the doctor says, hey, the liver is all right. So we look at the number of matches. That means let's say it's number 4. I just take away the matches from his hand, take my pen, put 4 dots on his hand, and then the organ is adjusted, you see. So I can use Chinese medicine, I can use biofeedback devices, or you can use kinesiology, muscle testing. That's another thing you can use. We also have a system of what we call based on universal harmonics, like the resonance between musical strings. So we use pendulums, not in a dowsing fashion, but we use pendulums as part of a harmonic system. Let's say wavelength, the wavelength of something and the resonance between things, so we can adjust the wavelength of the pendulum. And actually, this is one of the systems that we can use when we work on sites straight away. So we can have special pendulums that can be calibrated with certain dials, certain adjustments to measure certain things, That's another thing we use. But at the end, we use so many devices. At the end, the assessment is always through mainstream science, because that's, at the end, what you want to see. For example, if I do some arrangements in your house now, at the end, you want to see next time when you go and do your blood tests, you want to see a difference there. See, everything until we reach the tests, whatever alternative system we use will be very good for you. You'll like it and all that, but you'll always say, okay, let me see at the end what my doctor says when he sees the test. So we go through from very simple energetic means of assessment up to ultimately the end. We have, let's say, a middle phase where we use some biofeedback devices and things like that to show the effects when we make lectures and things like that. And then the final result is lab testing. Actually, the person goes to his doctor and makes his testing. So we go through, all the testing, because fortunately, I have at my disposal all the university labs and things like that. I'm not an acting professor anymore. I'm too old for that. I supervise now just postgraduate thesis. But in every thesis, I have this new paradigm, I'm actually an architecture and design professor. So let's say we design a chair. Now, you design the chair. I expect that an independent testing is done on a person on the chair to see an improvement on all his organ functions, all his biological organ functions. And then it was strange in the beginning, about 20 years ago. The university used to ask me, they used to tell me, Professor, are you crazy? I mean, you don't evaluate art every time you make a certain design. You're asking us to bring some doctors and some labs to evaluate it for you. You evaluate things by beauty. Can't you look at the proportions and all that and give your assessment just by, you have enough experience to do that. I said, no, that's BioGeometry is not like that. Now we have a new way of evaluating all arts. We evaluate any work of art, from architecture to the smallest work of art, by the harmonizing level it produces on the human energy system. That's the way to evaluate art. That's because you're supposed to change, let's say, the society. You're supposed to change people to the better. And that's how we look at BioGeometry. And when I see you, I'm sure we're going to do work together between BioGeometry and Bulletproof Coffee, because we have the same goals,
The goal of biohacking, this thing that I've popularized and probably pioneered is a fair word, is the art of changing the environment around you and inside of you so that your body will do what you want it to do. And there's many small changes you can make in food and in the air and in the environment around you. And I will admit, in the first Bulletproof coffee shop that's opening, which is a physical space, the design's really important. So we iterated a lot. I'm not trained in biogeometry, but I can tell you, when you walk into a space or when you read some words on a screen, either they annoy your nervous system, they have no effect, or they have an effect that makes you feel good. And I don't have a hard quantitative way of doing that other than heart rate variability, which is subject to interference from other things. You walk through a bad EMF field, it may affect you in a negative way, even though the change you made in the environment is a positive thing. But so, end of the day, I want spaces and words and radio shows and everything else that make people feel good and perform well and basically are more useful. There are much bigger things we can do if we acknowledge, for instance, that Wi-Fi has a biological impact, and it just does. Like, there's plenty of evidence for that. You have to selectively ignore a lot of studies if you want to still make the case that there's no effect.
Well, we work on that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, you do. And if we acknowledge the problem, then we go to the next step. Okay, how do you take this incredibly useful technology and make it useful for the human body, right? And potentially the technology that you work with, if we can show some more about what its mechanisms of action are, make it more repeatable, more teachable, and then incorporate it so that every Wi-Fi thing that comes out has that, or changes in the waveform that we're using, so that it's more friendly to biology. All those kinds of changes, we owe that to ourselves as a species that's capable of changing the environment around us in a really radical way, which is why I'm interested. That's why you're on Bulletproof Radio, because you're studying that same thing.
Now, I'll tell you one thing. I'll design a cup for you, a coffee cup, okay?
All right, I'd love to see that.
Okay, and I'll send you the design of the coffee cup at present.
Now, I'll 3D print it on that thing right there.
Okay, then you make that coffee cup and give somebody bulletproof coffee in that cup and then another cup, and we can do any biological assessment on the person. And you will see wonders from the BioGeometry cup.
I am really interested. Now, I want the person doing it to be blindfolded so they can't see which cup they're doing, and that'd be really cool.
Well, they wouldn't know which cup is which because, I mean, we won't give you a cup that looks weird. I mean, no, we'll try to make something that is as near to your normal cups as possible, so that people wouldn't notice the difference. You know.
That I would be very interested in, and that's the sort of thing that one group of people listening to this in their cars right now is going to say, like, this is such witch doctory. They're going to pull out, all the negative skeptic language. Oh, this is a scam. It's fraud. It's quackery. Sorry, guys. Those are all just personal ad hominem attacks. Like, either the science works or it doesn't work, and you have no idea what Professor Karim's motives are. So you can question the motives like that, which means you're small-minded, or you can say, I don't believe this can work because I don't understand a mechanism for it, at which point the scientist says, then show me proof that it works, good quality proof.
But that's it.
And if there is proof that it works, we got to say, why does this work? Because it shouldn't work. And it's kind of scary that it works, because if it does, then it's a little bit meaningful to everything else we do. So let's do the science experiment, or at least the thought experiment, and let's assume that this stuff totally works. And I don't know for sure if it does or doesn't. Like, I haven't felt a difference from the pendant you sent me, but that doesn't mean it's not working. It just means that I didn't detect it.
Well, you're not wearing it all the time,
I did wear it for about 2 weeks, and
you didn't see a difference at all?
I did not, and I charged it every night the way you described on the little plate thing. That still doesn't mean it doesn't do anything. Like, there are lots of
maybe
subtle...
Maybe something extra. Oh, something extra, yeah.
And there are subtle energy things.
You don't know, yeah.
Yeah, and I've done lots of weird stuff that shouldn't work, like electrically grounding yourself, the earthing sheets. I sleep with an earthing mat on my bed because it actually works, even though most people would say, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, it makes a difference. And now we think we know why. Maybe we don't know why. But I can tell you that works. But it didn't work the first night. It took a little while for me to figure out, to feel the difference. So let's assume that there's a mechanism of action here, and that we can theorize we know what it is. If I took you into the Bulletproof Coffee Shop in Santa Monica that I hope opens really soon now, as soon as our final government permit comes in, what are the likely things you would do when you walk in the door of a coffee shop? You see a big counter there, and it's got all kinds of stuff in there. Like what is your thought process? Just like walk me through what you would do there, because who knows, maybe we can have you in to Santa Monica if you're out on this coast.
I'll tell you what I'd do. First of all, I'd look at the design of the room, and maybe if I see some edges or some things really disturbing the energy, I'd correct that. And then what I would do is place some decorative patterns in a certain way that actually produce this harmonizing energy in there. And then actually I could design not just the cups, but I could design the chairs, I could design the tables, I could, anything, that needs design, I could design, and to produce an energetic harmony in the space. And then I don't go by feeling, like you say, I wore this thing, I feel it that way, I feel it that way. No, we'll do tests to show that people will get some independent thing. Just get an independent biofeedback institute, and we let them do tests before and after, and then we'll know exactly what BioGeometry is doing in the space.
That would be kind of interesting.
We can even change the menu. We can change the menu. We can even tweak even the logo, in such a way that it would attract people. Without you noticing the difference, you wouldn't know, because sometimes we tweak designs to many companies, and they ask us always, we have our logo or we have this thing for many years now. So can you do something to it without really changing it in an apparent way? Can you be so subtle that you don't change it? So a lot of our work is actually working in a very subtle way that our client keeps the image, keeps the logo or whatever it is, and it looks the same, but the energetic effect is totally different.
So that sounds interesting, just because I'm curious about that. And I've already done a lot to the environment. I have lights that change their color with the time of day to be more tied in with the circadian rhythm. There's pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices embedded in the chairs that use frequencies that stimulate healing. There's the electrical earthing surfaces or grounding surfaces built in on the tables and the chairs. There's a zone in the store that's designed for that. So there's a lot of things that you probably wouldn't notice when you walk in, and the whole intent there is I feel good when I'm in here. Like the environment has been already tuned to a certain point. But if there's further things to do, I'm always interested in that, especially if I can get data that shows that they're doing something specific. So I'm interested. If you're ever going to be out in California and there's a chance for us to meet up, I would love to get your architecture and design perspectives on it.
Where are you in California?
Santa Monica.
Yeah, because my son lives in Orange County, and they come a lot to visit my grandchildren.
When you're out there sometime, we'll arrange it. I live on Vancouver Island. So
I'll give you a call when I'm next time.
That'd be fun. So I have to come down from Canada as well. But if it worked out, it'd be really fun just to get your perspective on that and to compare it with what, say, a Feng Shui master would say about the space. Because there's different perspectives on this. And I have lots of biofeedback equipment. And this is the sort of things where this is, I would say, at the cutting edge of what's happening. So I don't claim that I understand or believe that this works or doesn't work. I'm an open-minded inquiry stage kind of person right now on this stuff. I had a hard time deciphering the book. That doesn't mean that it's not accurate. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that when I looked at it, I thought, wow, this is going to take a whole lot of study. And it's probably going to twist my brain in some odd ways that I'm not going to dig into with full intent right now just because of what's going on.
When you do a science today, like Feng Shui was done 2,000 years ago, you need to do it differently. You need to be more scientific. Yeah. And then you need to address the problems of modern technology. Now, Feng Shui, us to their time, had no electricity, had no radioactivity, they had no chemical pollution, all those things didn't exist. So they didn't address them. So today, when you make a new science today, like BioGeometry, you have to address all the problems that modern technology is creating in our lives. I say always that in the age of information, in all this electromagnetic radiation we have, there's a hidden time bomb, you know. We could be one of the greatest ages on Earth, but we have a time bomb hidden in there that could end life on Earth. So if we don't have new sciences that change that, we're ending our civilization very soon.
There's definitely something making people weaker on a multi-generation perspective, and technology has brought a lot of wonderful stuff with it, and I'm not opposed to it, but if it is causing harm, we should identify that, and then we should counter it using other kinds of technology, and I appreciate that perspective. And we're coming up on the end of the show, and there's a question that I've asked everyone who's ever been a guest on the show, except that one guy in episode 70, something or another. And the question is, given all the stuff you learned, not just as a professor, but in your life, what are your top 3 recommendations for people who want to perform better at whatever it is they do? So you're a parent, you want to be a better parent. You're a professor, you want to be a better professor. So what makes people better? Top 3 most important things they should know about.
Well, the most important thing is my personal definition of freedom. You know, I define freedom not as having your ideas and being given the opportunity to express them freely. Then you are a prisoner of your point of view, prisoner of your ideas. So to me, freedom is the ability to get out of the prison of your point of view and move around everything that exists. That way, you'll see all the other aspects of life, and then you can balance between them, and then you gain a new wisdom towards life. And that's one of the most important things that you can do, is move out of your point of view. Embrace everything else. That's one of the most important things. The second thing is, like the ancient Egyptians had the judges, the 42 judges, and when you died, you went and each one asked you a question. Now, one of the questions was, did you give your body in its older age what it gave you when you were young? So when you were a kid who didn't understand a lot, you used to do a lot of mistakes, and your body supported, see, and was there behind you, helping you. Now, at old age, are you doing the same for the health of your body? Are you paying back what it did to you all your life? See, that's a very important thing that you owe to your body. So this is a thing I think that's very important, that we owe to our body. Another thing is, we are living in the environment, see? And if you look at the environment around you, you will find shapes, okay? You will find shapes that a divine hand, imagine a divine hand holding a divine pen and drawing all those shapes in nature, the trees, the mountains, everything, all those shapes that are drawn. Okay, it's a divine pen writing. Okay, who of us can read that language? We only speak to each other as human beings, but we live in nature and we don't speak its language. So we should look at the writing, at the divine writing, and try to read it with our hearts. If you do that, then I'm sure that the earth will be a much happier place.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. And that connection to nature part is just terribly important. I'm always thinking about, if you go look at, say, Half Dome in Yosemite, like it's got a specific shape, and people respond to that. That's why there's so many famous pictures of it, and all, just there's something to it, and you don't necessarily know exactly what it is, but it's something you can feel, and that's really cool. Where can people find out more about biogeometry?
Well, we have our website, www.biogeometry.com. That's the main place to go to find more about biogeometry, and then you can go on YouTube and write biogeometry, search for biogeometry, and you'll find lots of seminars, TV programs in several languages. You might find things in German, French, Arabic, or English, so everybody can find something to his taste in there.
Great. Thank you so much for being on Bulletproof Radio, and I look forward to potentially meeting sometime in Southern California and seeing what design and architecture ideas you've got. I'm intrigued. Have an awesome day.
Well, thank you, and same to you, Dave, and see you soon, and I'm down there.
If you enjoyed today's episode of Bulletproof Radio, you know what to do. Go into iTunes, click like, and while you're at it, tell a friend. I'd sure appreciate it. And after that, you can check out more about biogeometry. Head on over to moldymovie.com and check out the screening of the new documentary. It's already getting rave reviews, and I really appreciate if you just do me the favor, watch it, because it'll change your life. Thanks, and have an awesome day.